You're on.
Right, yeah. The George Form, the kimono that George Formby owned, when I go up to Blackpool, which I usually go once a year, sadly last year I didn't get there at all. It wasn't me that fell over, it was the camera, sorry. And of course, because it's the only one, as opposed to when George Formby died, there was 22 of these, all very nice if you could own one, and currently fetching 70, 80,000 pounds each if you've got one. But cutting to the story, George Formby's youngest brother Ted, who died about 3-4 years ago, I think now, he used to live in Oxford. I got to know him fairly well, and he came to the Winter Gardens, Blackpool, George Formby meeting in September, when the AGM was for the George Formby Society meeting. And of course the kimono's there in the Spanish hall where we were all playing and singing and enjoying. And I said to Ted, would you like to try this, try it on? And of course he'd not seen it. We've owned it. My family have owned it since 1961, when my dad bought it. We've owned it longer than George Formby owned it, in actual fact. But it was nice to get Ted to put it on and take some photographs, and he felt really chuffed about it, and we had a couple of letters flying backwards and forwards, and over the months. And then the next time I saw him, he said, "I've got a little story to tell you." He says, George had up, certainly at Lytham St Anne's, at Berrendee, where he lived, a room which he used to call the Chinese room, and all his effects, and the main effect obviously would have been that Chinese, or the kimono, was in this room, and there was cabinets and Chinese stuff all over the place, associated with George, because he did the Mr. Wu was the first song that, you know, made 100,000 within 3 weeks, and all that started his career. So there was a lot of Chinese material. And he says, you know, he says, George, this is Ted, George's brother, telling me, nobody else. He says he used to go into that room. He says we'd have a party, we'd all go in there. He says, and then George would disappear off into the Chinese room, and he'd come out wearing the kimono and start buggering about. And I thought it was such a nice, you know, a nice little thing. And it wasn't until, and you can all check this out for yourselves, on YouTube, if you look at George Formby on YouTube, there's lots of videos, and there's also a little interesting piece put on there, not by Tommy Trinder, but it's Tommy Trinder talking about the Chinese room. Now, you go on YouTube and find out what he said. He doesn't say anything about the kimono particularly, but it just reinforced what I was told privately by George Formby's brother, who is no longer here now, and not many people know. You all know now, because I've just told you. A little aside. So I suppose I've got to finish off with a Chinese number, haven't I?
Definitely.
There's a Chinese laundryman, famous Mr. Wu. He's chucked his Limehouse laundry shop and his window cleaning too. He's got another job, it's one of the best. He's doing his bit for England like the rest. Now Mr. Wu, he's an air raid warden, and don't he look cute in his new siren suit? He goes round every night to make that blackout shower. So if you've got a chink in your window, you'll have another one at your door. His headquarters is plain, he's down by Lovers Lane, and he goes there every evening anyhow. Just Mr. Wu's an air raid warden now. His cousin one way in, one day was helping him remove a time bomb from the shop, I vow. But the bomb went off, there's no doubt, and one way in flew, one way out, was Mr. Wu's an air raid warden now. And don't he look cute in his new siren suit? He goes round every night to make that blackout sure. So if you've got a chink in your windows, you'll have another one at your door. A fire bomb one day dropped so close to him, they say, that he deserves a medal, they all vow. But perhaps what you don't understand, he put the fire out, but he didn't use sand.